Adolf Hitler. Rise, reign, and the catastrophe of Nazi Germany. Adolf Hitler remains one of history's most infamous figures, responsible for orchestrating World War II and the Holocaust, which resulted in the deaths of over 70 million people worldwide. Understanding his rise to power and the devastation he caused is essential to comprehending 20th century history and the dangers of totalitarianism, extreme nationalism, and racial hatred. Early life and formative years. Adolf Hitler was born on April 20th, 1889, in Braunau am Inn, a small Austrian town near the German border. His father, Alois Hitler, was a customs official who was strict and often harsh, while his mother, Clara, was affectionate and doting. Hitler's childhood was marked by conflict with his authoritarian father and deep attachment to his mother, whose death from cancer in 1907 devastated him. As a young man, Hitler aspired to become an artist. He moved to Vienna in 1907, hoping to attend the Academy of Fine Arts, but was rejected twice. These rejections deeply wounded his pride. During his years in Vienna from 1908 to 1913, Hitler lived in poverty, selling postcards and paintings to survive. It was during this period that his worldview took shape. Vienna's volatile political atmosphere, marked by intense nationalism and anti-Semitism, profoundly influenced him. He absorbed racist ideology and developed his hatred of Jews, Marxists, and what he perceived as the degeneration of Germanic culture. In 1913, Hitler moved to Munich, Germany, seeking to avoid military service in the multi-ethnic Austro-Hungarian army. However, when World War I erupted in 1914, he enthusiastically enlisted in the German army. He served as a dispatch runner on the Western Front, was wounded twice, and was awarded the Iron Cross for bravery. The war gave Hitler purpose and belonging. Germany's defeat in 1918 and the subsequent Treaty of Versailles, which imposed harsh terms on Germany, became a source of bitter resentment for Hitler and millions of Germans. Entry into politics and the Nazi Party. After the war, Hitler remained in the army and was assigned to spy on political groups in Munich. In 1919, he attended a meeting of the German Workers' Party, a small nationalist group. Rather than reporting on them, he joined and quickly became the party's most effective propagandist. By 1921, he had become the party's leader and renamed it the National Socialist German Workers' Party, the Nazi Party. Hitler proved to be a mesmerizing public speaker who could captivate audiences with his passionate rhetoric. He exploited Germany's economic hardships, national humiliation from the Versailles Treaty, and fears of communism. His message blamed Jews, Marxists, and November criminals, those who signed the armistice ending WWI, for Germany's problems, while promising to restore German greatness. In November 1923, Hitler attempted to seize power in Munich through the Beer Hall Putsch, a failed coup that landed him in prison. During his 9 months in Landsberg prison, he dictated Mein Kampf, My Struggle, outlining his ideology of racial superiority, anti-Semitism, anti-communism, and his vision for German territorial expansion in Eastern Europe. The book became the blueprint for Nazi policy. Rise to power. After his release, Hitler rebuilt the Nazi Party, focusing on gaining power through legal means. The Nazis remained a fringe party until the Great Depression struck in 1929. Economic catastrophe created mass unemployment and desperation, conditions Hitler ruthlessly exploited. Nazi support surged as Hitler promised jobs, national revival, and a strong Germany that would reject the Versailles Treaty. Through sophisticated propaganda directed by Joseph Goebbels, paramilitary intimidation by the SA, stormtroopers, and Hitler's charismatic speeches, the Nazis became Germany's largest party by 1932. Conservative politicians, believing they could control Hitler, convinced President Paul von Hindenburg to appoint him chancellor on January 30, 1933. This proved to be a catastrophic miscalculation. Consolidation of totalitarian power. Hitler moved swiftly to consolidate absolute power. Following the Reichstag fire in February 1933, he convinced Hindenburg to suspend civil liberties. The Enabling Act of March 1933 gave Hitler dictatorial powers. He systematically eliminated opposition. Communist and socialist parties were banned, trade unions destroyed, and political opponents arrested or murdered. After Hindenburg's death in 1934, Hitler merged the presidency and chancellorship, becoming Führer, leader, with total control. The Nazi regime created a totalitarian state that controlled every aspect of German life. The Gestapo, secret police, and SS terrorized the population. Propaganda saturated society through radio, films, rallies, and education. The Hitler Youth indoctrinated children. Independent institutions, churches, universities, professional organizations were either coordinated under Nazi control or suppressed. Dissent became extremely dangerous. Persecution and the Holocaust. From the beginning, Hitler implemented his racist agenda. The 1935 Nuremberg laws stripped Jews of citizenship and prohibited marriages between Jews and non-Jews. Jewish businesses were boycotted, then seized. On November 9th to 10th, 1938, during Kristallnacht, Night of Broken Glass, Nazi mobs destroyed Jewish synagogues, businesses, and homes across Germany while police stood by. This marked an escalation from discrimination to violent persecution. After Germany invaded Poland in 1939, Hitler's genocidal vision accelerated. Jews in occupied territories were forced into ghettos, where thousands died from starvation and disease. In 1941, Hitler ordered the final solution, the systematic murder of all European Jews. Death camps like Auschwitz, Treblinka, and Sobibor were constructed for industrial-scale genocide. By 1945, approximately 6 million Jews had been murdered in what became known as the Holocaust. The Nazis also killed millions of others they deemed inferior or dangerous: Roma people, Poles, Soviet prisoners of war, disabled individuals, homosexuals, and political dissidents. World War II, Hitler's aggressive foreign policy aimed to overturn the Versailles Treaty and establish German dominance over Europe. He remilitarized the Rhineland in 1936, annexed Austria in 1938, and seized Czechoslovakia. Britain and France pursued appeasement, hoping to avoid war. When Hitler invaded Poland on September 1, 1939, they finally declared war, beginning World War II. Hitler's military initially achieved stunning victories. Germany conquered Poland, Denmark, Norway, the Netherlands, Belgium, and France by mid-1940. However, Hitler made critical strategic errors. His failure to defeat Britain in 1940, his decision to invade the Soviet Union in June 1941, and his declaration of war on the United States after Pearl Harbor created an overwhelming coalition against Germany. Hitler increasingly controlled military strategy, often overruling his generals. His rigid insistence on holding every position, refusing tactical retreats, led to catastrophic defeats at Stalingrad, 1942–43, and in other campaigns. As the war turned against Germany, Hitler became more isolated, delusional, and uncompromising. Downfall and death. By 1945, Allied forces were closing in on Germany from all sides. The Soviet Red Army advanced from the east while American, British, and Canadian forces pushed from the west. Hitler, living in his bunker beneath Berlin, refused to surrender or flee. He ranted against imagined betrayals and ordered impossible counterattacks. As Soviet troops fought through Berlin's streets, Hitler married his longtime companion Eva Braun on April 29, 1945. The next day, they committed suicide together in the bunker. Their bodies were burned by AIDS. Germany surrendered unconditionally on May 8, 1945. Legacy and historical impact. Hitler's legacy is one of unprecedented destruction. World War II killed an estimated 70 to 85 million people, making it the deadliest conflict in human history. The Holocaust represented industrialized genocide on a scale previously unimaginable. Entire Jewish communities that had existed for centuries were annihilated. Eastern Europe was devastated, with cities reduced to rubble and populations decimated. Hitler's Germany demonstrated how a modern, educated society could embrace totalitarianism and commit unspeakable atrocities. His rise showed the dangers of extreme nationalism, racial hatred, economic desperation, and the failure of democratic institutions to resist demagogic manipulation. The Nazi experience led to fundamental changes in international law, including the Genocide Convention and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Studying Hitler and Nazi Germany remains essential not to glorify evil, but to understand how it can emerge and to remain vigilant against the ideologies and conditions that enable totalitarianism, genocide, and war. The lessons of this dark chapter continue to resonate, reminding humanity of the catastrophic consequences when hatred, intolerance, and authoritarianism go unchallenged.